restaurant. Let's assume you have went for an restaurant. So in the restaurant, what do? You just call the guy who is behind the chair and you just order the food what you want over there. And after the waiter to get the food which you have been ordered, and you enjoy the food and you just pay the services for the food which have been enjoyed. So rather than that, you don't involve in any kind of activity in the restaurant. Rather than that, you won't involve any kind of activity in the restaurant. So what are the service you are taking from the restaurant? You do pay for that service. In the same way, what are the service you are taking from the any kind of company? You do pay for them. You need not to involve in any kind of activity in the software development or any kind of maintenance work or any kind of installation work. You directly utilize the service and you pay for that service what you have been utilized. So hope this is the best example like how does a SaaS model works. And when I'm talking about the SaaS, what does it mean? Is like software as a service. What does the SaaS stands for? Software as a service. So you comes to know how does an exactly SaaS model works. So let me go to the next slide where it comes within a PaaS model. So let me tell you that what is a PaaS model. So when you're talking about the PaaS model, what you're gonna do here. So let me read this description first. Developers and programmers upload their content to pre-configure the service. Pre-configure the service. No installation or maintenance the server softwares or operating systems. So even in this kind of service also, we need not to install any kind of applications. So what we do is like only utilize the features which are there directly given by the service, and we do order the programmer or we do order the developer to configure the set of settings which we required over there. We do order the developer or the programmer to upload the settings or upload the content what we are expecting to be there in the software. So let me go with this example. Let's assume that most of the people you might be knowing about the Zomato and the Swiggy. Same example, I need to correlate with the restaurant what I have been taken. So what we do take our mobile, we do pick the online application like which serves as the food applications. So that might be the example of Zomato, Swiggy, and a lot number of things are there. So what you do order the food. While ordering the food, you do give some cooking instructions right over there, and even the things what you want, like you like tissue paper, like a spoon, what you want over there, like any kind of package, hard kind of package. So you will be giving instruction even for the delivery boy as well as a restaurant, even as a delivery boy and the restaurant. After coming, you just take them and you just pay the payment what it is asking for you. So in meanwhile, you are not doing any kind of stuff what you want over there. Like you directly order the food and you will be giving a set of instructions what you want over that. So in the same way, we do purchase the software from the company. We instruct the company, we instruct the programmer, we instruct the developer to build on some set of kind of settings over that software and hand over to us. So this model is known as a PaaS model. So platform as a service. So you might be having a question why I'm talking about this SaaS and why I'm talking about this PaaS. So in the beginning slide, I have mentioned that Salesforce comes under the cloud service. So when I'm talking about the cloud service, as I told you guys, so when I'm talking about the cloud service has been served in the base of 3 channels. One is SaaS model, one is PaaS model, and other one is like a infrastructure as a service. So then which factors does the Salesforce do come? So Salesforce do comes in the both applications like in a SaaS as well as in a PaaS. Salesforce do come in the both sides like a SaaS and PaaS. So let me tell you the example for this SaaS and PaaS again. So when you talk about this PaaS model, if you are having any kind of coding knowledge, like any kind of even the pinch of the coding knowledge, you might be knowing that how to write a Java programming. To write a Java programming, you need to install a hard application in your machine. So after, like it might be some IDE or anything like Eclipse or VS Code, anything it might be. So you do install that kind of application in your system, and again in that application you do write your code and you do deploy your code. So this is an example that the IDs which you are using in your machine is an example for the PaaS model. Like you will be taking an application, you will be changing the things whatever you want, you will be utilizing that acts as an intermediate. So even Salesforce do comes in that kind of model. So you might be having a question like, do we install to any kind of IDE in our Salesforce? So we don't have, we don't want to install any kind of hard application in the machine. So Salesforce itself comes with similar features which is offering as an IDE. Like we do have a developer console. We do have a developer console in the Salesforce where you can write your code in the developer console directly instead of writing a codes in the any third-party IDs applications. So it comes within a PaaS model. So when I go for the SaaS model, what does it mean? So let me give you an example of this SaaS model. So Facebook is a best example of the SaaS model. Instagram is a best example of the SaaS model. Like what do? You directly enter the URL www.facebook.com. So entering this URL, you do access the service of that application which is offered to you. So even in the same way, when you're working on the Salesforce, you need not to install any kind of application in your machine. So only the thing you need to utilize like the web link which we have been provided. Salesforce.com. Salesforce.com is the website. Like if you want to log into Salesforce, login.salesforce.com. If you want to create a Salesforce account, developer.salesforce.com. So instead of installing a hard application in a machine, you do access these resources from the web itself via link. Hope that is clear to you people, like what is SaaS model and what is PaaS model. So next we are going for the infrastructure as a service. So hence we are not involving as an infrastructure in the Salesforce model. So we are not much interested in discussing this, right? Again, you do these slides again tells you about the same which I have mentioned as in a SaaS, PaaS and all these things. Just it's an example. So again, when you talk about the cloud deploying systems, when you talk about the cloud deployment models and that what are the different kinds of cloud deployment models. So let's assume that when I'm telling that cloud services will be served in the base of three things like SaaS, PaaS, and the IaaS. In the same way, the data which is stored on that cloud, the data which is stored in that cloud. So what kind of deployment status will be there for those things? Like if you talk about these things, there are 4 different types of cloud deployment systems. So when you come with the private cloud, what does the private cloud do? So private cloud is nothing but the owner of the cloud will be having access. Other than that, no one is allowed to access the data over that cloud. So like you can also take example, yes, let's consider one kind of business here. Only the one who is having an ID cards, only those persons will be allowed. Only those persons will be allowed to enter into the office. Other than that, no one is allowed into the office until unless they are having an access card, until unless they are having an appointment letter with them. So let's assume this is a private cloud. We can access our data within our company. But if some third external party need to be access our data, they need to take a token which has been accessed. They need to take a token which need to be accessed. In the same way, when you talk about the hybrid cloud. So when I'm talking about the hybrid cloud is nothing but the combination of both private cloud and the public cloud, where some features in the private cloud will be having a public access, where some features in the public cloud will be having a private access. So you can see the same example. Let's assume in the public cloud, we are, so let's assume that there are 3 businesses like John's business, Jane's business, and Jane. So John's business is a public. So other than this public cloud, other than this private cloud, we can access both Jane's and John's business. So the combination of both private cloud as well as the public cloud, we do consider that as a hybrid cloud. So this is a public cloud. Anyone can enter into this, anyone can leave from this, anyone can utilize the data over this cloud. Right? When you talk about the community, so community cloud is nothing but a group of people will be togetherly working here. So all these people, you can see this is one community, Jane's one community, and John's one community, and Jen's one community. So there are the 3 different kinds of community. The data will be shared within the community itself. So we will be having a recording access. Even you can also access from the recordings. So let me come to the topic of the Salesforce now. As I mentioned in the beginning itself, I'm just mentioning it once again. Salesforce is a cloud-based platform, which is the world's #1 customer relationship management, which stands for the CRM. This helps marketing, sales, commercial service, and IT teams to work one for everyone, one for the everyone. Like when I'm talking about the B2B or when I'm talking about B2C. So this software will act as an intermediate between the B2B or B2C. So it will be a interconnection between the both sides of the softwares, both sides of the companies, both sides of the businesses, what they are gonna deal. What does the Salesforce do exactly? So Salesforce being the companies together, Salesforce being the companies and the customers gets together, and they do build a good kind of relationship with sharing the data and without leaving any kind of customer from the point one to the point end of the their journey in their business. So this is how about the Salesforce. As I told you that Salesforce deals with the two kinds of platforms, that's in a SaaS model as well as in a PaaS model. So what is the architecture of the Salesforce? So every software, like if you go for if when you're building in a new billing, so even for that billing also we do plan an architecture, like how does the billing should look. And when you go for any kind of business, every business do have its own architecture on the what base it is working, on the what base it is acting. So particularly when you talk about the Salesforce architecture, it works on the multi-tenant architecture. It works on the multi-tenant architecture and it follows the MVC architecture. It works on the multi-tenant architecture and it follows the MVC architecture. So let me tell you that what is MVC. So when I'm talking about the MVC, it stands for the model view controller. It stands for the model view controller. To maintain the data privacy, you do have the three features called controller, model, and the view. So the viewing part, the front end part, which has been seen directly to the screen, will be controlled by the standard pages and the Visualforce pages. When I'm talking about these standard pages are particularly meant for the admin part. We can build this standard page using the admin concepts. So when I'm talking about these Visualforce pages, particularly these Visualforce pages has been using the code. So we are not much bothered about these Visualforce pages. Even though using these standard pages, we can build a UI interface which can be displayed for the end user. In the same way, when you are talking about the controllers, so someone should be there to control the data, right? So how are we going to control the data? We're going to control the data based upon the different kinds of controls, standard controllers and the Apex controllers. When you talk about the models, to store the data in a particular entity, we do have a standard objects as well as a custom objects. Well, standard are the directly given by the Salesforce and the custom are the objects which we are building for our business case. So we all discuss all these things. How does this MVC model gets work in the Salesforce? So let me go to the architecture of the Salesforce. So when I'm talking about the architecture of the Salesforce, the architecture of Salesforce do follow multi-tenancy architecture. So what does it mean? What does a multi-tenancy mean? So multi is like multiple things, more than one. So tenancy is nothing but than renting for some kind of period. So let me give you an example here. You can see a big building here. So which is having multiple flats in that, So now I would like to ask you a question for you people. Let's assume that this building which I have been spotted in the black color, this building want the water. This building want the water facility. Where from the water should come? For sure, the water should come from the top of the building, right? From the water tank. For any building, for any flat in this building, if they required a water service, if they required a lift service, if they required a power supply, for sure, they need to take the water service from the top of the tank and they need to utilize a single lift which is there in the building for all the flats, and they need to get a power electricity connections from the transformer which is there in front of the building, right? So what it is doing, so only one instance, that instance is being shared with the all kind of flats which are there in this building. So multi-tenancy, so multiple flats has been shared within one occupancy, like only one water tank has been shared with the all kind of with all the flats, irrespective to the departments. Like let's assume that there are multiple people will be there, right? So we don't bother about the what kind of structure is there in that. So all the data which is being shared from the, if you take an example as a water, all the water should be shared from the top of the tank. So if you talk about the electricity, that power should be transferred from this transformer to the entire building. When you talk about the lift elevator, so the elevator will be used for all the flats. So let me relate this with the Salesforce. Let's consider this water tank as in a Salesforce. Let's consider that water tank which is there above the building is as a Salesforce. So all these are the clouds like sales cloud, service cloud, marketing cloud, commerce cloud, IT cloud, different kinds of cloud. So if someone is requested some data, so for sure they need to get the data from the Salesforce itself. So multi-tenancy. So multiple things will be used on the single server. Multiple things will be utilized on the single server. So hope you got the example now clearly. Just mention me on the chat if this example is clear, like what is a multi-tenancy architecture. Why I'm mentioning that clear is like this is also one of the most asked interview questions. Like you people are the beginners for the Salesforce. For sure, if you are going for an interview, this will be the most asked question for you people. Being in a entrance levels in the Salesforce, this is the most asked question for you people. So let me know that whether this is clear to you people. If not, let me explain once again. So let me put another way. Let's assume there is a water tank on the top of this building. Let's consider that water tank as a Salesforce, and there are multiple flats. You can see there. You can see multiple flats, right, for this building. So let's consider each flat as a different kinds of clouds. So in the Salesforce, we do have different kinds of clouds. In the Salesforce, we do have different kinds of clouds. Names with the sales cloud, service cloud, marketing cloud, commerce cloud, IT cloud. Different kinds of cloud for the different kinds of departments. For the various industries, even for the medical cloud, even we have a medical cloud. So let's consider each building as a different kinds of cloud. So let's consider the salesperson wants an information. Where do he get the information? He do get from the Salesforce, which is on the top, like which we consider as a water tank. Let's consider some service people in the flat number 10 or flat number 20. They want the information. Even though they want the information, it do goes for the same data server which is there on the top, like in a water tank. So Salesforce is in a multi-tenant architecture where on a single instance will be shared with the multiple clouds. Single instance, there is a query in the chat like how can you tell please about the difference of the Salesforce difference from the Azure and the AWS? And this session is particularly meant for the Salesforce. If you want this kind of reference, you can just approach on the Slacks, like you can just approach on the Telegram. We will be sharing over there because I don't want to mention all this Azure and all the AWS here, and I don't want to eat the time of the other beginners, right? So as I mentioned in the beginning, what are the key features of the Salesforce? What are the most used platforms of the Salesforce? The most used platforms as a key features of the Salesforce are a customer 360 and the sales automation and the marketing automation and the customer service automation. So if you consider any kind of industry, like any software, so all the software doesn't implement all the software doesn't use thoroughly. So there are some key features, there are some point, most utility will be there on that software. So in that way, when it comes for the Salesforce, these are the 4 key features of the Salesforce, like customer 360 profiles. So what does this customer 360 profiles do? So this customer 360 profile is meant to maintain the data structure, like to maintain the data of a customer from the point 1 to the point 10. So when you are going for this customer 360 profile, what you comes to know? So you comes to know about that profile, how many sales we have been approached with that customer, and what is the highest revenue we have been generated with that customer. What are the previous approaches where we have been finished to the close won opportunities, and what are the next estimated things that we can expect from this customer basing over the previous data. So when you deal with this kind of profile, what happens is you comes to know about the customer from the point in when we started the business with that customer to the end of the day where we are. So which makes the business to go in a smooth way, which makes to fulfill the leads in a less number of time to achieve the more productivity. So when you are having an entire data about the customer, you can deal in a better way than rather than not having any kind of data with the customer, right? So even though we comes to know, let's assume that I do have an sales showroom, like a car showroom. So let's assume that even for the same company, there is another kind of service center. So I have been purchased the car from the service. I have been purchased the car from the showroom. So automatically what happens is These information will be taken. These information will be taken by the service center, even the service center people also. So what they do is they do track your journey, like how many days has been happened when you have been taken the car. So within the 3 months to 4 months. So that's a general thing. Everyone knows that we need to take our car for the showroom, right? For a general service. So these service people do start calling you people and let you know that your car has been come for the service. You need to break your car. We are providing the best number of features for you and within a minimum amount which we have been offered. So this kind of data will be tracked with the using these kind of softwares. When you go for the sales automation, so this automation part deals about the sales, like what are the automated part we can do in the sales. And in the same way, when you talk about the marketing automation and the customer service, this is customer service particularly used for the service kind of applications, and this marketing automation used for the marketing kind of applications. So these are the four major key features of the Salesforce. So what is the difference between the normal Excel and the Salesforce? There is a lot of difference between the normal Excel and the Salesforce. So let me mention one point, since you have been mentioned like this. What is the difference between the normal Excel and the Salesforce? See, when you go for there, let me tell, the beginner version of the Salesforce similarly looks to the Excel. The beginner version of the Salesforce similarly looks to the Excel. So there are a lot number of implementations has been happened. The days getting increased with the Salesforce ecosystem. So let me give one example for the Salesforce ecosystem. One example to maintain the Excel data and the Salesforce, that you can deal multiple clouds within the one server. When you go for the Excel, you need to make substitutes, but you cannot maintain the data as long as you want. Another thing is like this is a SaaS and PaaS kind of model where you can directly access to the internet. When you go for the Excel, that's in a hard loaded application in your machine. Where you need to buy the softwares for every time when you want to make it renewal. But when you go for the cloud kind of applications, you can subscribe. When you are not interested in that application, you can directly unsubscribe it, where you don't have to pay for the amount of that. So there is no comparison between the Excel and the Salesforce. There is a lot of difference you comes to know in the when we are going thoroughly into the Salesforce. So there is no comparison like Salesforce and Excel sheet. So similarly, what I'm mean to tell is like the beginner version of the Salesforce is there similar to the Excel, but now it is completely different, which you can't even compare with the Excel. So I just want to mention like this, what are the different kinds of clouds which are there in the Salesforce. So the image which is displaying here are the different kinds of clouds we do have in the Salesforce. And sales cloud, service cloud, marketing cloud, commerce cloud, health cloud, analytics cloud, internet of things, community cloud, and the community chatter even, and the app cloud. So one more feature we do have here is like, let's assume that initially I have been started a business. So like the example which I have taken is like car showroom, right? So let's go with that example. So I have been started the car showroom business. So initially what I want, so for sure I want a marketing cloud as well as a sales cloud, right? So let's assume what happens if I'm purchasing as a Salesforce, if I'm not purchasing as a Salesforce. So let's go with some other scenario. So I have bought some other kind of Excel sheet or some which you have mentioned in the chat. So like Excel. So if I'm maintaining that data, if I do go for the sales. So I'm done with my sales. Now I need to go for the service kind of setup. So again, I need to import this data from the sales application to sales sheet to